The transport shuttle shuddered as it docked with Nexus Prime Military Academy. Nari pressed her face against the small window and watched the massive space station stretch out before her. The structure was bigger than any city she had ever seen on Earth. Gleaming metal corridors twisted around a central core like the arms of a giant spider. Ships from dozens of different worlds came and went through the docking bays. Nari picked up her single duffel bag and followed the other passengers off the shuttle. The moment she stepped into the station, she felt the weight of 100 stairs. Conversations stopped. Alien beings of all shapes and sizes turned to look at her with expressions that ranged from curiosity to open disgust. A tall reptilian creature, with scales that gleamed like green metal, hissed something to his companion. The words were in Galactic Standard, but Nari caught the meaning easily enough. Another weak human. Another waste of space. She kept her eyes forward and walked toward the registration desk. Her boots made soft sounds on the polished floor. Around her, the other new arrivals chatted excitedly with friends and family who had come to see them off. Nari walked alone. The academy was famous across 3 galactic sectors. Only the best and brightest from each species earned a place here. The graduates went on to lead fleets, command planets, and shape the future of galactic civilization. For most species, getting accepted was the greatest honor imaginable. For humans, it was different. Earth had only made contact with the galactic community 15 years ago. In that short time, humanity had gone from primitive planet dwellers to junior members of a vast interstellar society. Most aliens still saw humans as newcomers who had gotten lucky with their technology. The registration desk, a blue-skinned alien with 4 arms, checked Nari off a list. The creature barely looked at her as it handed over a datapad with her room assignment and class schedule. Room 247, level 15. Her roommate was listed as Park Ji-ho. Another human. I found the transport tube that would take her to the residential levels. As she waited, a group of tall, bird-like aliens walked past. Their feathers were brilliant colors of gold and silver. One of them looked down at Nari and made a sound that might have been laughter. Look at the little groundwalker, the alien said to its friends. Do you think it can even fly? The others joined in the laughter. Nari said nothing. She had heard worse. The transport tube carried her up through the station. Through the transparent walls, she could see the academy's training facilities. Combat simulators the size of football fields. Weapons ranges that stretched for kilometers. Swimming pools designed for aquatic species. Flight chambers for those with wings. Everything was built for aliens. Everything was designed around their strengths and abilities. Humans were an afterthought. Level 15 was quieter than the main areas. The corridors here were narrower, the lighting dimmer. This was where they put the species that did not quite fit in with the others. Nari found room 247 and pressed her palm to the scanner. The door slid open. Park Ji-ho was sitting on one of the 2 beds, reading from a datapad. He looked up when Nari entered and his face broke into a wide smile. He was about her age, with short black hair and friendly eyes. He jumped up and rushed over to greet her. You must be Nari, he said, extending his hand. I am Park Ji-ho. I have been waiting to meet you. It is so good to have another human here. Nari shook his hand and nodded. The room was small but clean. 2 beds, 2 desks, a shared bathroom. The walls were bare metal with no decorations. I have been here for 2 years, Ji-ho continued. I can show you around, help you get used to things. It can be difficult at first, especially for humans. What do you mean? Nari asked. Ji-ho sat back down on his bed and his smile faded a little. Well, we are not exactly popular here. Most of the other species think we are weak. They do not understand why the Academy even accepts humans anymore. Why do they accept us? Nari asked. Ji-ho shrugged. Politics, I think. Earth is a member of the Galactic Council now. They have to give us some spots. But that does not mean anyone expects us to succeed. He pulled up a display on his datapad and showed it to Nari. It was a ranking system that listed every student at the Academy. Humans occupied almost all of the bottom positions. This gets broadcast across the entire galaxy, Jiho explained. Every military command, every government, every news service sees these rankings. They all know that humans are the worst performers at the most prestigious military academy in known space. Nari studied the list. There were over 3,000 students at the academy. Only 47 were human. Of those, the highest ranked was in position 2847. Do not let it bother you too much, Jiho said quietly. We do our best. We try to represent Earth with honor. But we are just not built for this kind of competition. What about combat training? Nari asked. Jiho laughed, but there was no humor in it. Combat training is the worst. The weapons are designed for claws and fangs and extra arms. The tactics assume you can fly or breathe underwater or see in complete darkness. The instructors treat us like children playing at being soldiers. Nari unpacked her few belongings while Jiho talked. She had brought almost nothing with her. A few changes of clothes, some personal items, and a small photo of her family. She placed the photo on her desk and stared at it for a moment. Is that your family? Jiho asked. Nari nodded. My parents and my younger brother. Do they live on Earth? No, Nari said quietly. They lived on Kepler Colony. Past tense. Jiho went quiet. Everyone knew what had happened to some of the outer colonies. Raider attacks, system failures, mysterious disappearances. Life on the frontier was dangerous. I am sorry, he said. Nari turned away from the photo. It is fine. That is why I am here. To learn, to get stronger. The next morning, Jiho took Nari on a tour of the academy. The main corridors were crowded with students from dozens of species. Tall, graceful beings that moved like dancers. Heavily armored creatures that looked like living tanks. Insect-like aliens that clicked and buzzed as they communicated. That is Kala, Jiho said, pointing to a golden-feathered alien with wings folded against her back. She is Skyrithi, top of our tactical analysis class. She thinks humans are evolutionary mistakes. Near the weapons training center, they passed a group of reptilian Draknari. The largest one, covered in dark green scales, was clearly the leader. The others hung on his every word. That is Vos, Jiho whispered. His father is a planetary governor. He loves to remind everyone that his people conquered 3 star systems. Before humans even invented the wheel, they stopped at the Academy's main display board. It showed the current rankings, updated in real time. Students clustered around it, checking their positions and comparing scores. When they saw Nari and Jiho approaching, several aliens moved away, as if being near humans might hurt their own. Standings, Nari studied the board. The top students had scores that seemed impossibly high. Perfect marks in every category. Records in physical performance that defied belief. Do not worry about it, Jiho said. Just focus on doing your best. And that is all any of us can do. That afternoon, Nari attended her first classes. Galactic history, where she learned about the great wars and alliances that had shaped the known galaxy. Xenobiology, where she studied the strengths and weaknesses of different species. Tactical theory, where ancient strategies were analyzed. And updated for modern warfare. In every class, she was one of the few humans. In every class, she was ignored or dismissed. When teachers asked questions, they rarely called on human students. When group projects were assigned, humans were picked last or left out entirely, but Nari watched everything. She listened to every word. She memorized every detail. While other students chatted or looked bored, she absorbed information like a sponge. After dinner, she found herself alone in the observation lounge. Through the massive windows, she could see the binary stars that Nexus Prime orbited. Their light painted the station in shifting colors of gold and red. Jiho found her there. An hour later. You missed the evening social, he said. I introduced some of the other humans to you. But you were not there. I needed to think about why I am really here, Nari said. She was quiet for a long moment. In the distance, a squadron of fighters performed training maneuvers around the station. Their engines left trails of light against the darkness of space. Tomorrow we start combat training, Jiho said. Try not to let it discourage you. The instructors can be harsh, especially with humans. Just remember that we are representing Our entire species. Nari nodded but said nothing. She continued to watch the stars, her expression unreadable. Something about her stillness made Jiho uncomfortable. Though he could not say why. "I will see you in the morning," he said, and left her alone with her thoughts. Nari stayed at the window until the lights dimmed for night cycle. She thought about the academy, about the rankings, about the way the other species looked at humans. She thought about her family, about Kepler Colony, about all the things she had lost. Most of all, she thought about tomorrow, about combat training, about showing these aliens what a human could really do, but not yet. She was not ready yet. She needed to watch, to learn, to understand her enemies before she revealed her true self. The quiet transfer student smiled in the darkness. Soon, she thought. Very soon, everything would change. 3 weeks had passed since Nari arrived at Nexus Prime Military Academy. She had settled into a routine that made her nearly invisible to most students. Every morning she woke before dawn and studied while Jiho slept. She attended classes without speaking unless directly asked a question. She ate her meals quickly and alone. Her grades were average at best. In tactical theory, she scored exactly in the middle of her class. In weapons training, she performed just well enough to pass. Her physical fitness scores were unremarkable by Galactic standards. To everyone watching, Nari was exactly what they expected from a human student, but Nari was always watching. She memorized the fighting styles of every species she encountered. She studied their strengths and weaknesses with the focus of a scientist. When the Draknari practiced their claw combat techniques, she observed from the shadows. When the Skyrathi worked on aerial maneuvers, she noted their blind spots. When the insect-like Hivikan coordinated their group attacks, she analyzed their communication patterns. Jiho tried his best to include her in the small human community at the academy. There were 47 humans total, scattered across different years and programs. Most of them had banded together for support and friendship. They met for meals, studied together, and tried to maintain their dignity in a place that clearly did not want them. Kim Minho was their unofficial leader. He was in his final year at the academy and had managed to earn the respect of a few alien instructors through pure determination. He was tall for a human, with broad shoulders and calloused hands from years of training. When he spoke, other humans listened. During one of their group dinners, Minho pulled Nari aside. "You have been here almost a month," he said, "but you keep to yourself too much. The others are starting to wonder if you think you are better than them." "I do not think that," Nari replied quietly. "Then why do you avoid us? We are all humans here. We need to stick together if we want to survive this place." Nari looked around the small dining area where the human students had gathered. They were laughing and talking, trying to forget the daily humiliations they faced. She could see the exhaustion in their eyes, the way they hunched their shoulders as if expecting another blow. "I am not good at making friends," she said finally. Minho studied her face. "You are hiding something. I have been here 4 years." "I know. When someone is carrying secrets?" "What happened to you before you came here?" Nari met his gaze steadily. "My family died. I joined the academy to honor their memory." "That is all." Minho did not look convinced, but he did not push further. "Just remember that we are all fighting the same battle here. None of us can win it alone." The next day brought Nari's first major test. Commander Vex, a massive Draknari with dark green scales and yellow eyes, announced that the students would be participating in paired combat exercises. Each human would be matched with an alien partner for a simulated infiltration mission. The aliens chose their human partners like they were selecting tools from a workshop. Most went for the larger humans like Minho, thinking size might translate to usefulness. A few picked students they knew from previous classes. Nari was chosen last by a Skyrathi named Kala. Kala was everything. Nari was not. She stood nearly 2 meters tall, with brilliant golden feathers and wings that could carry her at speeds no human could match. Her amber eyes held the confident look of someone who had never faced a challenge she could not overcome. She was ranked 15th in their year, the highest of any student in their tactical analysis class. So I get stuck with the quiet little human. Kala said as they reviewed their mission parameters. Try not to slow me down too much. The exercise took place in a mock enemy facility built into one of the Academy's training levels. The goal was simple: infiltrate the base, gather intelligence from 3 separate locations, and escape without being detected by the automated defense systems. Teams had 2 hours to complete the mission. Most pairs approached the problem by using their natural advantages. Flying species took aerial routes. Heavily armored aliens smashed through barriers. Species with natural camouflage used stealth approaches. Kala immediately took charge of their team. She spread her wings and examined the facility from above, looking for the fastest route to their objectives. The base was designed like a fortress, with high walls, guard towers, and multiple security checkpoints. We will go in from the top, she announced. I will carry you to the roof, then we work our way down to the intelligence nodes. Simple and efficient. What about the anti-aircraft defenses? Nari asked quietly. Kala waved a dismissive wing. I am fast enough to avoid them. Just hold on tight. And try not to panic. The mission began badly and got worse from there. Kala's aerial approach triggered every defense system in the facility. Laser turrets tracked their movement while alarm klaxons blared. She was forced to dodge and weave, making it impossible to reach the roof as planned. When they finally made it inside through a secondary entrance, they were already behind schedule. Kala insisted on maintaining the lead, using her superior speed and agility to navigate the corridors. But the facility was designed to challenge multiple species. With obstacles that required different approaches, Nari suggested alternative routes several times, but Kala ignored her input. The proud Skyrethi was determined to prove that her natural abilities were superior to any human cunning. She smashed through barriers that could have been bypassed. She triggered alarms that could have been avoided. She chose direct confrontation over subtle infiltration at every opportunity. By the time they reached the first intelligence node, they had used up half their allotted time and set off enough alarms to wake the dead. The second node proved even more challenging, protected by a maze of laser barriers that Kala's flying abilities could not overcome. At the third and final node, disaster struck. Kala's impatience led her straight into a trap designed to catch overconfident students. Energy nets dropped from the ceiling, pinning her wings and leaving her helpless. The simulation's defense systems moved in for the capture. Nari could have completed the mission herself. She had memorized the facility's layout and identified 3 different ways to reach each objective without triggering major alarms. But she was supposed to be average, unremarkable, forgettable. So instead she made a show of trying to free Kala before the time limit expired. Their team failed spectacularly. Out of 36 pairs, they finished dead last. After the exercise, Commander Vex gathered all the students for a debrief. His yellow eyes fixed on Kala and Nari as he began his analysis of their performance. This team demonstrates a perfect example of species incompatibility, he announced to the class. The Skyrethi student attempted to use her natural advantages, which is correct tactical thinking. However, she was burdened by a partner whose limitations made success impossible. He gestured toward Nari with one clawed hand. Humans lack the physical capabilities necessary for advanced military operations. They cannot fly, they have no natural weapons, their senses are limited, and their reaction times are slow. In a real combat situation, this human would have been a liability that got her partner killed. The other students nodded in agreement. Several aliens made comments about human weakness and the folly of including Earth species in serious military training. Nari stood silently through it all, her face showing no emotion. Kala, however, was furious at being humiliated in front of her peers. After the class dismissed, she confronted Nari in the corridor. You cost me my ranking, she hissed. I was in the top 15 before this disaster. Now everyone will think I cannot handle a simple infiltration mission. You chose the approach, Nari replied calmly. I suggested alternatives. Your suggestions were worthless. Humans think too small, move too slow, see too little. You are evolutionary dead ends pretending to be soldiers. A small crowd had gathered to watch the confrontation. Other Skyrithi students encouraged Kala to continue her verbal assault. A few Draknari made comments about human fragility. Even some of the usually peaceful species seemed amused by the display. Face the truth, Kala continued. Your people do not belong here. You are taking spaces that should go to real warriors. The galaxy would be better off if humans stayed on their little planet and left the fighting to their betters. Nari listened to every word without changing expression. When Kala finally finished her rant, the corridor fell silent. Everyone waited to see how the human would respond to such a brutal attack on her entire species. You are probably right, Nari said quietly. Humans are not like other species. We are weaker, slower, more limited in many ways. She turned and walked away, leaving Kala and the others staring after her in surprise. They had expected anger, tears, or at least some kind of defensive response. Instead, the quiet human had simply agreed with them and left. That evening, Nari sat alone in the observation lounge again. She watched the stars and thought about the day's events. Jiho found her there, as he had several times before. I heard about what happened with Kala, he said. I am sorry. She had no right to speak to you that way. She was not wrong, Nari replied. Humans are different from other species. That does not make us inferior. 3 weeks had passed since Nari arrived at Nexus Prime Military Academy. She had settled into a routine that made her nearly invisible to most students. Every morning she woke before dawn and studied while Jiho slept. She attended classes without speaking unless directly asked a question. She ate her meals quickly and alone. Her grades were average at best. In tactical theory, she scored exactly in the middle of her class. In weapons training, she performed just well enough to pass. Her physical fitness scores were unremarkable by Galactic standards. To everyone watching, Nari was exactly what they expected from a human student, but Nari was always watching. She memorized the fighting styles of every species she encountered. She studied their strengths and weaknesses with the focus of a scientist. When the Draknari practiced their claw combat techniques, she observed from the shadows. When the Skyrithi worked on aerial maneuvers, she noted their blind spots. When the insect-like Hivikan coordinated their group attacks, she analyzed their communication patterns. Jiho tried his best to include her in the small human community at the academy. There were 47 humans total, scattered across different years and programs. Most of them had banded together for support and friendship. They met for meals, studied together, and tried to maintain their dignity in a place that clearly did not want them. Kim Minho was their unofficial leader. He was in his final year at the academy and had managed to earn the respect of a few alien instructors through pure determination. He was tall for a human, with broad shoulders and calloused hands from years of training. When he spoke, other humans listened. During one of their group dinners, Minho pulled Nari aside. You have been here almost a month, he said, but you keep to yourself too much. The others are starting to wonder if you think you are better than them. I do not think that, Nari replied quietly. Then why do you avoid us? We are all humans here. We need to stick together if we want to survive this place. Nari looked around the small dining area where the human students had gathered. They were laughing and talking, trying to forget the daily humiliations they faced. She could see the exhaustion in their eyes, the way they hunched their shoulders as if expecting another blow. I am not good at making friends, she said finally. Minho studied her face. You are hiding something. I have been here 4 years. I know. When someone is carrying secrets? What happened to you before you came here? Nari met his gaze steadily. My family died. I joined the academy to honor their memory. That is all. Minho did not look convinced, but he did not push further. Just remember that we are all fighting the same battle here. None of us can win it alone. The next day brought Nari's first major test. Commander Vex, a massive Draknari with dark green scales and yellow eyes, announced that the students would be participating in paired combat exercises. Each human would be matched with an alien partner for a simulated infiltration mission. The aliens chose their human partners like they were selecting tools from a workshop. Most went for the larger humans like Minho, thinking size might translate to usefulness. A few picked students they knew from previous classes. Nari was chosen last by a Skyrathi named Kala. Kala was everything, Nari was not. She stood nearly 2 meters tall, with brilliant golden feathers and wings that could carry her at speeds no human could match. Her amber eyes held the confident look of someone who had never faced a challenge she could not overcome. She was ranked 15th in their year, the highest of any student in their tactical analysis class. So I get stuck with the quiet little human, Kala said as they reviewed their mission parameters. Try not to slow me down too much. The exercise took place in a mock enemy facility built into one of the academy's training levels. The goal was simple: infiltrate the base, gather intelligence from 3 separate locations, and escape without being detected by the automated defense systems. Teams had 2 hours to complete the mission. Most pairs approached the problem by using their natural advantages. Flying species took aerial routes. Heavily armored aliens smashed through barriers. Species with natural camouflage used stealth approaches. Kala immediately took charge of their team. She spread her wings and examined the facility from above, looking for the fastest route to their objectives. The base was designed like a fortress, with high walls, guard towers, and multiple security checkpoints. We will go in from the top, she announced. I will carry you to the roof, then we work our way down to the intelligence nodes. Simple and efficient. What about the anti-aircraft defenses? Nari asked quietly. Kala waved a dismissive wing. I am fast enough to avoid them. Just hold on tight. And try not to panic. The mission began badly and got worse from there. Kala's aerial approach triggered every defense system in the facility. Laser turrets tracked their movement while alarm klaxons blared. She was forced to dodge and weave, making it impossible to reach the roof as planned. When they finally made it inside through a secondary entrance, they were already behind schedule. Kala insisted on maintaining the lead, using her superior speed and agility to navigate the corridors. But the facility was designed to challenge multiple species. With obstacles that required different approaches, Nari suggested alternative routes several times, but Kala ignored her input. The proud Skyrathi was determined to prove that her natural abilities were superior to any human cunning. She smashed through barriers that could have been bypassed. She triggered alarms that could have been avoided. She chose direct confrontation over subtle infiltration at every opportunity. By the time they reached the first intelligence node, they had used up half their allotted time and set off enough alarms to wake the dead. The second node proved even more challenging, protected by a maze of laser barriers that Kala's flying abilities could not overcome. At the third and final node, disaster struck. Kala's impatience led her straight into a trap designed to catch overconfident students. Energy nets dropped from the ceiling, pinning her wings and leaving her helpless. The simulation's defense systems moved in for the capture. Nari could have completed the mission herself. She had memorized the facility's layout and identified 3 different ways to reach each objective without triggering major alarms. But she was supposed to be average, unremarkable, forgettable. So instead she made a show of trying to free Kala before the time limit expired. Their team failed spectacularly. Out of 36 pairs, they finished dead last. After the exercise, Commander Vex gathered all the students for a debrief. His yellow eyes fixed on Kala and Nari as he began his analysis of their performance. This team demonstrates a perfect example of species incompatibility, he announced to the class. The Skyrathi student attempted to use her natural advantages, which is correct tactical thinking. However, she was burdened by a partner whose limitations made success impossible. He gestured toward Nari with one clawed hand. Humans lack the physical capabilities necessary for advanced military operations. They cannot fly, they have no natural weapons, their senses are limited, and their reaction times are slow. In a real combat situation, this human would have been a liability that got her partner killed. The other students nodded in agreement. Several aliens made comments about human weakness and the folly of including Earth species in serious military training. Nari stood silently through it all, her face Showing no emotion, Kala, however, was furious at being humiliated in front of her peers. After the class dismissed, she confronted Nari in the corridor. "You cost me my ranking," she hissed. "I was in the top 15 before this disaster. Now everyone will think I cannot handle a simple infiltration mission. You chose the approach, Nari," replied calmly. "I suggested alternatives. Your suggestions were worthless. Humans think too small, move too slow, see too little. You are evolutionary dead ends pretending to be soldiers." A small crowd had gathered to watch the confrontation. Other Skyrithi students encouraged Kala to continue her verbal assault. A few Draknari made comments about human fragility. Even some of the usually peaceful species seemed amused by the display. "Face the truth," Kala continued. "Your people do not belong here. You are taking spaces that should go to real warriors. The galaxy would be better off if humans stayed on their little planet and left the fighting to their betters." Nari listened to every word without changing expression. When Kala finally finished her rant, the corridor fell silent. Everyone waited to see how the human would respond to such a brutal attack on her entire species. "You are probably right," Nari said quietly. "Humans are not like other species. We are weaker, slower, more limited in many ways." She turned and walked away, leaving Kala and the others staring after her in surprise. They had expected anger, tears, or at least some kind of defensive response. Instead, the quiet human had simply agreed with them and left. That evening, Nari sat alone in the observation lounge again. She watched the stars and thought about the day's events. Jiho found her there, as he had several times before. "I heard about what happened with Kala," he said. "I am sorry." "She had no right to speak to you that way. She was not wrong," Nari replied. "Humans are different from other species. That does not make us inferior." Nari was quiet for a long moment. Through the window, she could see a patrol of Academy security ships making their rounds. Their formation was precise but predictable. Any real enemy would spot the pattern within minutes. "Jahal," she said finally, "do you ever wonder why Earth joined the galactic community when it did?" "What do you mean, 15 years ago?" "We went from a planet that had never left its own solar system to a member of the Galactic Council." "That seems fast, does it not?" Jiho shrugged. "Our scientists made some breakthroughs. We developed faster than light travel. The galaxy noticed us and invited us to join, and you believe that is the whole story. What else could there be?" Nari turned away from the window and looked directly at him. Her eyes held something that made Jiho take a step back. For just a moment, she did not look like a struggling academy student. She looked like someone who had seen things that would give him nightmares. "Maybe someday you will find out," she said. But not tonight. She left him standing alone in the observation lounge, wondering what secrets the quiet transfer student was hiding. Outside, the stars continued their ancient dance, keeping their own mysteries locked away in the darkness between worlds. The announcement came during morning assembly. Admiral Gorin, the station commander, stood before the gathered students with his forearms crossed behind his back. His blue skin gleamed under the artificial lights as he spoke in his deep, commanding voice. "Next week begins the Crucible testing," he announced. "Every student in their second semester or beyond will participate. The results will be broadcast across the Galactic Military Network and will determine your final rankings for this academic year." A murmur ran through the assembled students. The Crucible was legendary at Nexus Prime. It was a holographic combat simulation that adapted to each participant, creating increasingly difficult challenges until the student was finally defeated. No one had ever beaten it completely. The current Academy record was held by Prince Thek of the Draknari Empire. He had survived 28 waves before the simulation finally overwhelmed him. That record had stood for 3 years, and Thek was now a fleet commander leading battles across 2 star systems. Most students were lucky to reach Wave 10. The average score was around Wave 7. For humans, the expectations were much lower. The highest any human had ever achieved was Wave 7, accomplished by a graduate 3 years ago who was now considered a legend among Earth students. Jiho looked nervous as they walked back to their quarters after the assembly. He had attempted the crucible once before and lasted exactly 4 waves. The memory still haunted him. I do not understand why they make us do this, he said to Nari. Everyone knows humans cannot compete with the other species. It just gives them another chance to humiliate us. Maybe that is the point, Nari replied quietly. Over the next few days, the academy buzzed with preparation for the crucible tests. Students trained harder, studied combat tactics more intensively, and formed study groups to share strategies. The alien students were confident and excited. The humans were resigned to another public demonstration of their limitations. Minho gathered the human students for a meeting in their small common room. His face was serious as he addressed the group. Listen carefully, he said. The crucible results will be seen by every military command in the galaxy. How we perform reflects on all of humanity. I know most of you are scared, and you have every right to be. But remember that we represent Earth and everyone who comes after us. A younger human student named Lee Hannah raised her hand. What if we just embarrass ourselves again? What if we prove that humans really do not belong here? Then we prove it with dignity, Minho answered. We fight as hard as we can, we show courage under pressure, and we fail with honor. That is all anyone can ask of us. The students nodded, but Nari could see the defeat in their eyes. They were already accepting failure before they had even tried. She understood why. Every day at the academy reinforced the message that humans were inferior. Every class, every exercise, every interaction with alien students drove home the same point, but Nari remembered other lessons. She remembered the real reason humans had developed faster than light travel so quickly. She remembered the colonies that had gone silent in the outer systems. She remembered the reports that never made it to the galactic news feeds. Most importantly, she remembered her family. The night before her crucible test, Nari could not sleep. She stood at the window of her room, looking out at the stars. Jiho was snoring softly in his bed, exhausted from a day of frantic preparation. Tomorrow he would face the simulation again, and she knew he was terrified. Nari thought about the choice she was facing. She could continue her act, perform poorly in the crucible, and maintain her cover. That was the safe option. That was what her training told her to do, or she could let them see what a human really looked like when the gloves came off. The next morning, students gathered in the observation deck above the crucible chamber. The simulation room itself was massive, filled with holographic projectors that could create any environment or enemy the Academy's computers could imagine. Students would face the test one at a time while their classmates watched from above. The alien students went first, as always. A Drachnary named Voss stepped into the chamber with his chest puffed out in confidence. The simulation began with a standard urban warfare scenario. Enemy soldiers appeared from behind buildings and vehicles, firing energy weapons at the lone defender. Voss used his natural advantages well. His armored scales deflected most incoming fire while his claws tore through enemy ranks. He moved with the brutal efficiency his species was known for, crushing opponents with raw strength and aggression. Wave after wave fell before him. By wave 15, the crowd was cheering. By wave 20, even the instructors were impressed. Voss finally fell at wave 23, overwhelmed by a coordinated assault from multiple directions. It was an excellent performance that put him in contention for the Academy's top rankings. Kala went next. Her golden feathers gleamed as she spread her wings and took to the air. The simulation adapted, creating flying enemies and aerial combat scenarios. She danced through the sky, striking with precision and grace. Her performance was beautiful to watch, a display of natural talent that left the audience in awe. She lasted 21 waves before a massive aerial predator finally brought her down. The Skyrithi students erupted in celebration while Kala preened. Under the attention, one by one the alien students took their turns. Some performed better than others, but all of them lasted at least 10 waves. The lowest score so far belonged to a peaceful herbivore species that managed 8 waves through clever tactics and superior intelligence. Then it was time for the humans. Minho went first, representing their species with as much dignity as he could manage. He fought bravely, using every technique he had learned at the academy. His movements were precise and controlled, showing years of hard training. The alien students watched in respectful silence as he gave everything he had. He lasted 6 waves. It was a respectable showing that earned him a few nods of approval from the instructors. He left the chamber with his head held high, knowing he had done his best. The other humans followed. Hannah managed 4 waves. Another student reached 5. Jiho, despite his fear, pushed himself to 6 waves and equaled Minho's performance. Each human fought with courage and determination, but the results were always the same. They were outmatched by the simulation's challenges. Finally, it was Nari's turn. She walked into the chamber while betting pools formed among the alien students. Most predicted she would last 3 waves. A few generous observers gave her 4. No one expected anything remarkable from the quiet human who had shown nothing but mediocrity since arriving at the academy. Commander Vex watched from the instructor's booth with his yellow eyes fixed on the display screens. He had already prepared his analysis of human combat inadequacy for the post-test briefing. In his mind, this was just another demonstration of why Earth species should stick to support roles. The simulation began. The environment materialized around Nari as a war-torn city street. Rubble littered the ground while smoke drifted between damaged buildings. Enemy soldiers appeared at both ends of the street, their weapons already tracking toward her position. Nari moved. For the first time since arriving at the academy, she stopped pretending to be average. Her body flowed like water as she dodged the first volley of energy blasts. She rolled behind cover, came up firing, and dropped 3 enemies with perfect headshots before disappearing into a side alley. The observation deck went quiet. This was not how humans were supposed to fight. Wave 2 brought more enemies from multiple directions. Nari cleared them with ruthless efficiency, using the environment in ways the simulation designers had never considered. She turned everyday objects into weapons, used physics against her opponents, and moved through the battlefield like she had been born for war. Wave 3, Wave 4, Wave 5. Each challenge was met and overcome with the same cold precision. Nari's movements were economical, purposeful, deadly. She wasted no motion, missed no shots, made no mistakes. By Wave 10, the entire academy was paying attention. Students from other years abandoned their own activities to watch the feeds. Instructors gathered in the observation booth, their conversations growing more animated with each passing wave. Jiho stared at his roommate in shock. This was not the quiet, unremarkable girl he thought he knew. This was something else entirely. Something that moved like a predator and struck like lightning. Wave 15, Wave 20. The simulation began throwing challenges that had never been used before. Mechanized enemies that required different tactics. Environmental hazards that tested adaptability. Coordinated assaults that demanded split-second timing. Nari handled them all. Commander Vex leaned forward in his chair, his claws gripping the armrests. Something was very wrong here. Humans were not supposed to be capable of this level of performance. Their biology, their reflexes, their combat instincts, everything the galaxy knew about Earth species said this was impossible. Wave 25. Nari had surpassed every expectation, shattered every assumption, and was still fighting. The simulation's artificial intelligence was being pushed beyond its normal parameters, forced to create scenarios it had never needed before. The galactic military feeds exploded with activity. The recording of a human student approaching the academy record spread across the network within minutes. Fleet commanders interrupted planning sessions to watch. Government officials abandoned meetings to see the impossible performance. On Nexus Prime, absolute silence reigned in the observation deck. Even the alien students who had mocked humanity for months watched in stunned disbelief. Wave 26, Wave 27, Wave 28. Nari had tied Prince Thak's legendary record. The simulation paused for a moment, its processors working overtime to generate a challenge worthy of Wave 29. No student had ever reached this point. The Academy's computers were entering uncharted territory. The new wave began with enemies unlike anything seen before. The simulation threw everything it had learned about combat into a single, overwhelming assault. Aerial attackers, ground forces, environmental hazards, and technological challenges all struck simultaneously. Neri met them with the same calm efficiency she had shown from the beginning. She moved through the chaos like she belonged there. Like war was her natural element. Her performance transcended normal combat training and entered the realm of artistry. Wave 29, Wave 30. The simulation's artificial intelligence began generating completely new scenarios, pushing beyond its original programming. It created challenges that existed nowhere in its databases, theoretical situations that no instructor had ever conceived. Nari adapted to each one instantly. Her mind processed information at inhuman speeds while her body executed movements that seemed to violate the laws of physics. She fought like someone who had been doing this her entire life. Wave 31. Wave 32. Wave 33. At Wave 34, something unprecedented happened. The simulation began to stutter. Its holographic projectors flickered as the system struggled to keep up with the demands being placed on it. The artificial intelligence was operating beyond its design limits, trying to create challenges fast enough to overwhelm the human student. It could not. At Wave 35, the inevitable happened. The simulation crashed. Its processors overloaded, its memory banks exceeded, its programming pushed past the breaking point. The holographic environment flickered once and died, leaving Nari standing alone in the empty chamber. She was not even breathing hard. The silence in the observation deck stretched for an eternity. Then slowly the implications began to sink. A human student had not just broken the academy record. She had broken the simulation itself. The emergency lights in the crucible chamber cast red shadows across the walls. Technicians rushed to restart the crashed simulation while students and instructors stared through the observation windows at the small human figure standing calmly in the center of the room. Nari waited. She knew what was coming next. The questions, the demands for explanations, the investigations that would follow. She had crossed a line that could never be uncrossed. But as she looked up at the shocked faces watching her, she felt something she had not experienced in months. Relief. Commander Vex was the first to break the stunned silence. His claws scraped against the metal railing as he leaned forward, his yellow eyes fixed on Nari with an expression of complete bewilderment. "Get her out of there," he growled to his assistants. "I want answers." Now. The chamber door cycled open and Nari walked out to face a corridor full of staring aliens. Students pressed against the walls to make room for her, their conversations dying as she passed. She could feel their fear, their confusion, their sudden uncertainty about everything they thought they knew. Jiho was waiting for her at the exit, his face pale with shock. "Nari," he whispered, "what just happened in there?" "What did you do?" "I stopped pretending," she replied quietly. Admiral Goran himself appeared in the corridor, flanked by senior instructors from multiple species. His forearms gestured sharply as he approached, and the gathered students quickly scattered to give him space. "Student Lee Nari," he said in his deep voice, "you will come with me immediately. We have much to discuss." They walked through the academy's corridors in tense silence. Nari could see the news of her performance spreading like wildfire. Students huddled around datapads, watching recordings of the impossible human who had broken their most advanced simulation. Emergency meetings were being called. Priority communications were flooding in from across the galaxy, the Admiral led her to his private office, a large room with windows overlooking the Academy's main docking bays. Commander Vex was already there, along with several other senior staff members. They arranged themselves around a conference table while Nari took the single chair facing them. "Explain," Admiral Goran said without preamble. "How did a human student destroy our most advanced combat simulation? How did you achieve a performance that should be biologically impossible for your species?" Nari studied the faces around the table. These were career military officers, beings who had dedicated their lives to understanding warfare and strategy. They deserved the truth. Even if it would change everything. What do you know about Earth's first contact with the galactic community? She asked. Commander Vex hissed in annoyance. Do not answer our questions with questions, human. Tell us how. You achieved that performance 15 years ago. Earth went from a primitive world to a spacefaring civilization almost overnight, Nari continued, ignoring the interruption. Your records show that human scientists made breakthrough discoveries in faster than light travel. That is the official story. It is the truth, Admiral Goran replied. Your species developed the necessary technology and requested membership in the Galactic Council. Nari shook her head. That is what Earth wanted you to believe. The truth is more complicated. She stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the ships moving between the docking bays. Transport vessels, military cruisers, exploration craft from dozens of different worlds. All of them peaceful. All of them safe in the protected space around Nexus Prime. Earth did not develop faster than light travel, she said. We stole it. The room erupted in shocked exclamations. Commander Vex rose from his chair, his scales bristling with anger. Impossible. Human technology was centuries behind galactic standards. You could not have stolen anything from us. Not from you, Nari said calmly. From them. She turned back to face the table. For the first time since arriving at the academy, she let her true self show in her eyes. The instructors saw something there that made them lean back in their chairs. 10 years ago, ships began appearing in Earth's outer colonies. Ships unlike anything in your galactic databases. The beings aboard them did not come to trade or explore or make peaceful contact. They came to feed. What are you talking about? Admiral Goran demanded. We call them the Devourers, Nari explained. They come from the dark space between galaxies. They consume entire worlds, stripping them of all life before moving on to the next target. They found Earth's colonies first because we were the furthest out, the most isolated, the easiest prey, Commander. Vex slammed his claws on the table. This is fantasy. We monitor all space traffic in this sector. There are no unknown species, no mysterious ships, because we stopped them, Nari said simply. Earth has been fighting a war for the past decade. A war we never told the galaxy about, because we knew you would not believe us. Who would take the word of primitive humans over the evidence of their own sensors? She walked back to her chair and sat down, meeting each alien's gaze in turn. Every human colony past the galactic border zones has been under constant attack. We have lost entire worlds. Billions of people dead or missing. But we kept fighting, and we kept learning. Learning what? Admiral Goran asked quietly. How to kill things that should not be able to die, Nari replied. How to fight enemies that can move through space without ships. How to survive against beings that treat entire planets like cattle ranches. The room fell silent. Outside the windows, normal galactic traffic continued its peaceful patterns, unaware of the conversation taking place in the Admiral's office. The Devourers taught us things about warfare that are not in any academy textbook, Nari continued. They forced us to become something we never wanted to be. Every human you have dismissed as weak and primitive has grown up knowing that monsters hunt in the darkness between stars. Every human at this academy is here because their families, their friends, their entire worlds depend on them becoming strong enough to fight back. She gestured toward the window and the galaxy beyond. You have had peace for so long that you have forgotten what real war looks like. Your species compete with each other in simulation chambers and training exercises. But you have never faced an enemy that wants to devour every living thing in the universe. Commander Vex had gone very still. If this is true, he said slowly, then why did Earth join the galactic community? Why not ask for help? Because you would not have given it, Nari answered. Look at how you treat humans even now, when we pose no threat to you. Imagine how you would react if we told you that we had been fighting a war against monsters from beyond the galaxy. You would think we were lying or insane, and if you did believe us, she continued, you would panic. The galactic community is built on the assumption that space is safe, that threats can be negotiated with or contained. The Devourers cannot be reasoned with. They cannot be stopped by treaties or diplomatic immunity. They can only be fought. Admiral Goran leaned back in his chair, his blue skin pale with shock. So, humans joined the galactic community to hide a war to protect it, Nari corrected. Every Devourer ship we destroy is one that will never reach your worlds. Every human who dies fighting them is dying to keep your children safe. We never asked for recognition or gratitude. We just did what needed to be done. The implications were staggering. If Neri was telling the truth, then everything the galaxy believed about humanity was wrong. They were not weak newcomers struggling to keep up with more advanced species. They were hardened warriors who had been holding the line against an existential threat. The performance in the Crucible suddenly made perfect sense. Nari had not been struggling with an academic simulation. She had been restraining herself, holding back skills learned in real combat against real enemies. How many others? Commander Vex asked quietly. How many other humans at this academy are like you? All of us, Nari replied. Every human student here has lost family to the Devourers. Every one of us has seen things that would give your species nightmares. We are not here to learn how to fight. We are here to learn how to fight alongside other species when the Devourers finally break through our defenses. She stood up again, her small frame somehow seeming larger in the quiet room. The war is not going well, she admitted. We are losing colonies faster than we can defend them. The Devourers are adapting to our tactics, becoming stronger and more coordinated. Soon we will not be able to contain them in the outer systems, and when that happens, Admiral Gorn asked Dodd, when that happens, Nari said, the galaxy will learn what humans have always known. Sometimes survival requires becoming something darker than you ever wanted to be. Sometimes peace can only be preserved through violence. Sometimes the quiet ones are the most dangerous of all. The room fell silent again. The senior staff exchanged glances, each trying to process the magnitude of what they had just learned. Outside, the academy continued its normal operations, unaware that their understanding of humanity had just been turned upside down. Finally, Admiral Goran spoke. Can you prove these claims? Nari reached into her pocket and pulled out a small data chip. This contains the real records from the outer colonies. Battle reports, casualty lists, tactical analyses of Devourer ships and weapons. Everything Earth has learned about fighting an enemy that should not exist. She placed the chip on the table between them. But first she said, you should know that my performance in the Crucible was not exceptional by human standards. It was average. Every human student at this academy could do the same if they stopped holding back. The quiet transfer student had finally revealed her secret. But in doing so, she had revealed something much larger. Humanity was not what the galaxy believed them to be. They were something far more dangerous and far more necessary than anyone had imagined. The data chip sat on Admiral Goran's desk like a bomb waiting to explode. 3 hours had passed since Nari's revelation, and the Academy's senior staff had been analyzing the contents in stunned silence. The evidence was overwhelming and terrifying. Combat. Recordings showed human soldiers fighting creatures that seemed to bend the laws of physics. Ships that moved without engines, weapons that ignored energy shields, enemies that regenerated from wounds that should have been fatal. The Devourers were everything Nari had claimed and worse. Commander Vex stared at a tactical analysis of a battle for a colony called New Sol. Human defenders had held off a Devourer assault for 3 days before evacuating the civilian population. The cost had been enormous. 12,000 soldiers killed, an entire planet abandoned to monsters from beyond the galaxy. This cannot be real, he muttered for the 10th time. Our sensors would have detected these ships. Our intelligence networks would have noticed an entire War.NA. I sat calmly across from him, her hands folded in her lap. She had spent the afternoon answering questions and providing additional details. Each answer only made the situation more disturbing. Your sensors detect what they are designed to find, she explained. Devourer ships exist partially outside normal space. They appear on our instruments as energy anomalies or sensor ghosts. Your technology interprets them as equipment malfunctions. Admiral Goran pulled up another file, this one showing casualty. Reports from human colonies across the outer rim. The numbers were staggering. Entire worlds with populations in the millions simply marked as evacuated or communication lost. How many people? He asked quietly. Over 2 billion, Nari replied without hesitation, dead, missing, or displaced. That is why every human family has lost someone. That is why every human child grows up knowing that monsters are real. The door to the office chimed, and Kim Minho entered with several other human students. They had been summoned after Nari's initial revelations, and their faces showed the same mix of relief and apprehension that Nari had felt earlier. Admiral Goran gestured for them to sit. Student Kim Minho, you are the senior human representative at this academy. Did you know about student Lee Nari's background? Minho shook his head. We all suspected that some humans had more combat experience than they showed, but we follow the same protocols. We do not discuss our past missions or reveal our true capabilities. Protocols, Commander Vex repeated. You mean orders, Lee Hana? The young human student who had seemed so nervous about the crucible spoke up quietly. Every human who leaves Earth signs agreements. We do not talk about the war with alien species. We do not reveal our training or capabilities. We pretend to be exactly what you expect us to be. And what is that? Admiral Goran asked. Weak. Hannah replied. Primitive. Harmless newcomers who are grateful for any scraps of acceptance. The galaxy throws our way. Dachi-Ho shifted uncomfortably in his chair. I never understood why, he admitted. It felt wrong to hide what we could really do. But the orders came from the highest levels of Earth government, because panic would have made everything worse. Nari explained. The galactic community is stable because everyone believes that space is fundamentally safe. Trade routes are undefended, civilian ships travel alone. Entire star systems rely on the assumption that real threats do not exist. She gestured toward the data chip on the desk. If Earth had announced the existence of the Devourers 10 years ago, what would have happened? Mass panic, closed borders, military buildups that would have destabilized half the galaxy. Meanwhile, the real enemy would have kept growing stronger. While everyone prepared to fight each other, the logic was sound but disturbing. Humanity had chosen to bear the burden of defending the galaxy rather than risk the chaos that truth might bring. They had accepted being seen as inferior because the alternative was galactic civil war. Commander Vex pulled up a stellar map showing human colony locations. The pattern was clear once you knew what to look for. Every human settlement was positioned on the outer edge of galactic space, forming a defensive perimeter around the more established alien worlds. You have been using your colonies as a barrier, he realized. Every human world is a fortress guarding the approaches to galactic civilization. Not every world, Minho corrected grimly. We lost the outer ring 5 years ago. The middle colonies are under constant pressure. Only the inner defensive line is. Holding and barely, Admiral Goran studied the map with growing alarm. If these defenses fail, how long before the Devourers reach the core systems? Months, not years, Nari answered. That is why Earth finally started sending students to places like this academy. We need to prepare the galaxy for what is coming. The door chimed again, and a communications officer entered with a datapad. Her expression was tense as she approached the Admiral's desk. Sir, she said urgently. We are receiving priority transmissions from Earth Command. They are requesting immediate secure communications with student Lee Nari. The room fell silent. Everyone understood the implications. Earth Command did not contact Academy students unless something catastrophic had happened. Nari stood up, her face pale but determined. Patch it through, she said quietly. The main display screen activated, showing the image of a middle-aged human woman in military uniform. Her face was exhausted, her eyes holding the weight of impossible decisions. General Park Sumi, Earth Defense Command, she announced. Student Lee Nari, you have been recalled to active duty immediately. The situation in the Vega sector has deteriorated beyond our worst projections. Nari straightened to attention. What are my orders, General? A devourer fleet of unprecedented size has broken through our outer defenses. They are moving toward the core systems faster than our models predicted. We need every experienced soldier we can get. The alien staff members exchanged shocked glances. This was really happening. The war Nari had described was not just a distant threat but an immediate crisis. General Park's image flickered as she continued. Furthermore, the galactic military networks have been monitoring your Academy's combat simulations. Your performance has raised questions we can no longer avoid answering. She turned her attention to Admiral Goran. Admiral, Earth Command is prepared to share our full intelligence on the Devourer threat with the Galactic Defense Council. The time for secrecy has ended. Admiral Goran leaned forward, his forearms clasped tightly. General, if your reports are accurate, this represents a threat to every civilized world in the galaxy. Why has Earth not requested military assistance? Because until now, we were not sure anyone would believe us, General Park replied. And because we were not certain the galactic military was ready to fight an enemy like this, she gestured off-screen, and the display shifted to show a tactical briefing. Star charts covered with red markers showed the advancing Devourer fleet. Casualty reports scrolled past in endless columns. Evacuation orders for entire star systems flashed with urgent priority codes. The Devourers have adapted their tactics, General Park explained. They are no longer content to consume isolated colonies. They are making a coordinated push toward the galactic core. Our defensive lines cannot hold them back much longer. Commander Vex studied the tactical display with professional interest. Your forces have been fighting alone for a decade. What makes you think combined galactic forces would be more effective? Because humans are not the only species with hidden strengths, Nari said quietly. We have been studying all of you for years. Your tactics, your technologies, your capabilities. We know what each species can contribute to a real war effort. She turned to face the alien instructors. The Draknari have the most effective close combat techniques in the galaxy. The Skyrithi can coordinate air and space operations better than any other species. The Hivi can understand group tactics on a level that individual species cannot match, and humans, Admiral Goran asked, humans know how to fight when everything else has failed, Nari replied. We know how to keep going when hope is gone. We know how to make the hard choices that civilized species cannot make. General Park's voice cut through the discussion. Student Lee Nari, your transport departs in 6 hours. Pack light and prepare for extended combat operations. The transmission ended, leaving the room in heavy silence. Nari looked around at the faces of her instructors and fellow students. The quiet transfer student who had hidden in the shadows for months was about to become a soldier again. Jeho stood up suddenly, his face determined. I'm coming with you, Nari. Shook her head. You are not ready. None of you are ready for what real combat looks like. Then teach us, Minho said firmly. All of us. Show us what humans really know about fighting. Admiral Goran made a decision that would change the course of galactic history. Student Linari, I am authorizing the creation of a new joint species combat program. You will train volunteers from every species represented at this academy. Commander Vex looked skeptical. You want to turn academy students into soldiers based on the word of one human, not based on her word, Admiral Goran replied. Based on the evidence. Based on the fact that a species we considered primitive has been fighting and dying to protect us for 10 years while we remained ignorant. He turned to Nari with something approaching respect. Can your people hold the line long enough for us to prepare? Nari thought of her family, of the colonies that had already fallen, of the soldiers who were fighting and dying while she stood safely in an academy. We will hold, she said quietly. We always have, but for the first time since the war began, humans would not be fighting alone. The quiet transfer student had done more than break a simulation record. She had broken the barriers between species and united the galaxy against a common enemy. The hidden war was about to become everyone's war. 6 months later, Lee Nari stood on the bridge of the galactic battleship Unity, watching allied fleets form up for the largest military operation in recorded history. Ships from dozens of species floated in perfect formation, their different designs creating a tapestry of technological achievement across the void. The transformation had been swift and dramatic. Within days of Nari's revelation at Nexus Prime, the galactic military networks had exploded with activity. Emergency sessions of the Galactic Council, urgent mobilization orders, and frantic preparation for a war most species had never imagined possible. Admiral Gorin approached her position near the tactical display. His blue skin looked pale under the bridge lighting, but his forearms moved with confident purpose as he reviewed the battle plans. Final fleet reports, Admiral, an officer announced. 437 ships ready for combat operations. All species participating. As planned. NARS studied the tactical display with professional interest. Drachnary battleships form the main battle line, their heavy armor and powerful weapons positioned to absorb the worst of any assault. Skyrathi carriers provided fighter support, their graceful ships launching clouds of small, fast attack craft. Hivikan coordination vessels managed communications and logistics with mechanical precision, and scattered throughout the formation were human ships. Not many, because Earth had committed most of its fleet to defending the remaining colonies, but enough to provide expertise and tactical guidance for species that had never fought a real war. Commander Vex joined them at the display, his scaled face showing an expression Nari had never seen before. Respect mixed with something that might have been gratitude. The volunteers from the Academy have exceeded all expectations, he reported. Your training methods have transformed them into effective combat units in record time. Nari nodded but felt no satisfaction. She had spent 3 months at the Academy after her revelation, working with students from every species to prepare them for what was coming. The cost had been enormous. Several students had been unable to handle the psychological pressure of learning what real combat meant. Others had requested transfers rather than face the reality of war, but many had stayed. Jiho had proven to have natural talent for small unit tactics. Minho had become an excellent instructor for mixed species operations. Even Kala, the proud Skyrathi who had once dismissed humans as evolutionary failures, now served as Nari's second in command. She had changed the most of all the alien students. The revelation that humans had been protecting the galaxy while being mocked for their supposed weakness had shattered her worldview. She now fought with the intensity of someone trying to make up for years of blind prejudice. Long-range sensors are detecting movement in the target system, a technician announced. Devourer fleet composition matches intelligence estimates. Approximately 200 vessels of various classes. The numbers were sobering. 200 Devourer ships represented more firepower than most galactic sectors could deploy. But this time, humanity would not face them alone. Admiral Gorin activated the fleet-wide communication system. All ships, this is Admiral Gorin aboard. Unity, today we face an enemy that has threatened our galaxy for years while we remained ignorant. We owe a debt to the humans who have fought and died to protect us. Today we begin to repay that debt. Across the fleet, crews from dozens of species prepared for battle. Many of them had never fired a shot in anger. Most had never seen combat outside of training simulations, but they had spent months learning from humans who had survived the impossible, and they were as ready as anyone could be for what was coming. Fleet Command, this is Captain Kim Minho aboard the human destroyer. Sol, came a voice over the communications net. Human task force is in position and ready to proceed. Nari smiled slightly. Minho had been promoted rapidly after distinguishing himself in the Academy training program. He now commanded a mixed crew of humans and aliens aboard one of Earth's most advanced warships. All units, advance to hyperspace jump coordinates, Admiral Gorin ordered. Operation Lighthouse begins now. The fleet jumped as one. Thousands of ships disappearing into the twisted space between stars. Nari watched the tactical display track their progress toward the embattled colony world of New Harmony. It was one of the last human settlements in the Outer Rim, holding out against impossible odds while civilian evacuation ships carried refugees toward safer systems. The plan was complex but necessary. The Galactic Fleet would engage the main Devourer force while human ships used their superior knowledge of enemy tactics to rescue the remaining defenders. It was the first true cooperation between human forces and the Galactic military. Hyperspace transit complete, the navigation officer announced. Emerging in the new Harmony system now, the main display showed a scene of devastation that shocked even the experienced alien commanders. New Harmony burned in its orbit, its cities dark and its defense platforms reduced to drifting wreckage. The Devourer fleet hung in space around the dying world like carrion birds, their impossible ships feeding on the destruction they had created, but the human defenders were still fighting. A handful of battered ships continued to harry the enemy fleet, using hit-and-run tactics to buy time for the last evacuation transports. They were outnumbered 50-1, but they had not surrendered. Enemy fleet is moving to intercept, the tactical officer reported. Devourer ships are admiral. Their formation does not match any known tactical doctrine, because they do not think like us, Nari explained. Devourers do not fight to win territory or achieve political goals. They fight to feed. Their tactics are more like hunting than warfare. She moved to the tactical station and began highlighting enemy positions. See how they move. They are trying to surround and isolate our ships so they can destroy them individually. Traditional battle line tactics will not work against them. Admiral Goran studied the enemy movements with growing understanding. Then, what do you recommend? Nari's fingers danced over the tactical controls, highlighting ships throughout the Allied fleet. We use their hunting instincts against them. Skyrithy fighters act as prey, drawing the Devourers into pursuing individual targets. Draknari battleships wait in ambush positions to strike when the enemy is distracted. Hivikan coordination ships manage the timing so every piece moves perfectly. And the human ships? Commander Vex asked. We do what we have always done, Nari replied. We hold the line while everyone else gets into position. The battle that followed became legendary in galactic military history. For the first time, the combined forces of multiple species fought as a unified whole against a common enemy. Skyrithy pilots danced through space, their ships moving like living creatures as they led Devourer hunters into carefully prepared traps. Draknari guns spoke with devastating effect, their weapons tearing through enemy hulls with surgical precision. Hivikan coordination turned the entire fleet into a single organism, every ship responding instantly to changing tactical situations, and through it all, human ships held the center of the formation, absorbing punishment that would have shattered any other fleet while their crews fought with the desperate skill of people who had nothing left to lose. The turning point came when Nari identified a weakness in the enemy flagship. Devourer command ships used organic technology that could be disrupted by specific energy frequencies. It was knowledge paid for with the blood of countless human defenders over the years of hidden war. Target the bio-neural nodes, she ordered over the tactical net. All ships, concentrate fire on the following coordinates. The Galactic fleet responded with devastating precision. Alien weapons that had never been fired in anger struck with perfect accuracy. Guided by human expertise and alien skill working together, the enemy flagship convulsed as its organic systems failed. The death of the command vessel sent shockwaves through the Devourer fleet, disrupting their coordination and sending them into chaotic retreat. Enemy fleet is withdrawing, the tactical officer reported in amazement. We have achieved complete victory with minimal losses, but Nari felt no celebration. This had been just one battle in a war that had already lasted too long. Across the galaxy, other human colonies were still under attack. Other defenders were still fighting alone against impossible odds. Admiral Goran seemed to understand her thoughts. This is just the beginning, he said quietly. How many other battles like this will we need to fight? Hundreds, Nari replied. Maybe thousands. The Devourers have been growing stronger for years while we held them back alone. It will take everything the galaxy has to stop them permanently. She turned from the tactical display to look out at the fleet around them. Ships from species that had mocked humanity just months ago now worked alongside human vessels as equals. The transformation was remarkable, but it had come at a terrible cost. Will it be enough? Commander Vex asked. Nari thought of her family, of the colonies that had fallen. of the soldiers who had died to protect a galaxy that did not even know they existed. She thought of Jiho's courage, of Minho's leadership, of Kala's determination to prove herself worthy of human respect. I do not know, she admitted. But for the first time since the war began, we have hope. The fleet began rescue operations around New Harmony, pulling survivors from the devastated colony while human ships coordinated the evacuation. It was a small victory in a vast war, but it represented something larger, the age of humanity fighting. Alone was over. The galaxy had finally awakened to the threat that had lurked in the darkness between stars. And at the center of it all, a quiet transfer student who had broken more than just a simulation record stood watch over a new alliance that might just be strong enough to survive. The Academy rankings that had once shown human inferiority now displayed a different truth. Species working together, learning from each other, becoming stronger than any of them could be alone. In the observation lounge of Nexus Prime, new students from dozens of worlds studied together, human and alien, side by side. The old prejudices had not disappeared entirely, but they were cracking under the weight of shared purpose and mutual respect. And somewhere in the darkness between galaxies, ancient enemies paused in their endless hunger, sensing for the first time that their prey had developed claws. The quiet transfer student had kept her promise. She had shown the galaxy what humans really were. In return, the galaxy had shown her something she had almost forgotten. No one had to fight alone anymore.